let's see here. Let's make this big. Okay. So, the pregnancy was the con, how one woman allegedly tricked countless doulas into helping deliver a fake baby. This was published back in September of 2023. And this is an article in Cosmopolitan, which I wouldn't normally go over an article from Cosmopolitan, but I thought that it had a lot of things in it and statements and feelings from the victims. So I think it is important to see those. And it says, for months, dozens of unwitting birth workers coached a supposedly expecting client named Kaitlyn Braun through a series of grotesque labor scenarios. Now, in a sprawling international court case, she faces 52 criminal charges for making it all up. In their first major magazine interviews, 5 of Kaitlyn's accusers describe how they fell under her chilling, persuasive power. So this was before she took a plea deal and admitted guilt to 21 of the 52 counts. And in this, we will get to go over at least 5 of Braun's victims. I like that they put a little content warning here. The story contains graphic descriptions of pregnancy loss, sexual violence, medical maltreatment, and emotional abuse. So if that is something that you don't think you can handle, it's okay to stop and maybe go find another video and come back at a different time. So we've got, in a TikTok video uploaded this March, an Ontario doula, let's call her Ashley. Don't believe they're using correct names in this, but as we go along, I'll be able to know this better. But if they're saying let's call her Ashley, that says to me that it's probably not her real name. She stares intently at the camera. She has a warning for her fellow birth workers. A serial pregnancy faker is on the loose, pulling unsuspecting doulas into a string of ever-changing, nightmarish scenarios. And that's a pretty good description of what Kaitlyn Braun has done. Without naming names, Ashley imparts her message. This person was not and has not ever been pregnant. The community had to protect itself. The post quickly went viral as others stitched videos corroborating Ashley's claim. A troubled pattern soon emerged, as did the identity of the accused, Kaitlyn Braun, a 24-year-old social worker from Brantford, Ontario, who had reportedly been DMing doulas on Instagram with a myriad version of a shattering scenario. In many cases, the details mirrored the lived experiences of the doulas themselves, and all shared a common plot. Seemingly scared and in crisis, Kaitlyn needed them to help her through a traumatic ordeal. Some doulas had already called the police, but Kaitlyn was still out there roping people in over and over again. It's some powerful art. By the time Kaitlyn Braun was arrested on March 13th and charged with multiple counts of fraud, criminal harassment, false pretenses, indecent acts, and sexual assault, she had allegedly enlisted dozens of doulas, feeding off their compassion and manipulating their professional code. Unlike OBGYNs or midwives who are medical providers, doulas are devoted to providing comfort, advocacy, and education to clients throughout the birthing process, both virtually and in person. It appeared that Kaitlyn had found a perfect target. People whose entire jobs is to believe women, to address their pain instead of dismissing it, to hear them, help them, and support their choices no matter what. And support Kaitlyn they did. At a significant emotional and financial cost to themselves, many opted to provide their service for free. Now, I'm pretty sure that Kaitlyn knew that, a lot of doulas didn't charge for loss support because she wouldn't have had the money to pay these doulas, even if I know there was one that she was like, oh yeah, I'll pay you like an IOU, but I don't think, if it wasn't out of the kindness of their hearts, of these doulas doing this without charging someone, that a lot of this could continue to go on. And so that's sad, because now many of these people might charge for something that once was free to people who are in real situations, unlike Kaitlyn Braun. Now they share their stories in excruciating detail with the hope of raising awareness about whatever the hell happened here. What did happen? Kaitlyn's alleged behavior tracks with what may be factitious disorder, a serious mental illness where people falsify medical or psychological symptoms, says Dr. Mike Feldman, a clinical professor of psychiatry and an adjunct professor of psychology at the University of Alabama and co-author of Dying to be Ill, True Stories of Medical Deception. That might be a good book to read. Unlike most mental illness, this one involves deliberateness and often tremendous planning, he explains. Many patients are so deft improvisers, spinning up convincing details on the fly. The experience is so gratifying that they can't resist, even when they know it's likely to explode in their faces. It appeared that Kaitlyn had found a perfect target, people whose entire job is to believe women. And that's just sad. Let's look at this next one. Kaitlyn was hyper aware of the trauma she was causing, says Nora, a 25-year-old doula who provided 10 days of phone support to Kaitlyn. For Samantha, 35, who supported Kaitlyn in person and virtual, there was even an admission. Afterward, Kaitlyn told me she was going to see her therapist for help getting my brain and my thoughts figured out, she says. Whether or not she did, Kaitlyn continued hiring new doulas anyways. So I don't think she went to go see her therapist. She apologized and moved on to the next. Because of a court-ordered publication ban, all the doulas' names in this story have been changed. So there we have it. These are not the actual names of the doulas. They are pseudonyms for them currently. Some of them are public now, but for this story, they're not going to be. For the same reason, Kaitlyn's attorney, Allison R. McDonald, said Kaitlyn was unable to speak with Cosmopolitan, noting that Kaitlyn was still in custody. So as of September 2023, she was still in custody before she had pled. Kaitlyn has not entered a plea, so she hadn't entered a plea at that point. Her social work license has been temporarily suspended, as it should. When asked to comment on the fact that some doulas felt the police were dismissive of their concerns, a spokesperson for the Brantford Police Service said its investigation, marked by immense dedication, compassion, and attention, was exhaustive. Yeah, but why did it take like 12, 17, 19 doulas to finally come forward before anything was done? Like, you had the proof of all the other women that came before that last one. And that last one, you chose to react a little bit afterwards. Why does it take that many victims for something to happen? It seems a bit ridiculous to me. August 2022, an ultrasound surprise. Kaitlyn appears as someone who has learned of her pregnancy late. She's nearly at term. A healthy baby girl named Eden, conceived via SA, is due any minute. Samantha is a rookie doula who hears from Kaitlyn, her very first client, via Instagram DM. Kaitlyn arranges for Samantha to provide in-home and in-hospital labor support. And I've said this before in another video, but this was this doula's first client. Can you imagine having somebody faking this stuff as your first person into your career? It's all a sham. Like, that has to be really hard to move forward in your career, wondering if there are other people that do this. Is this a common thing? Nobody warned me about this when I was in school or taking my certifications. But Samantha, Kaitlyn texted me on a Monday, her due date saying she thought she might go into labor. The contractions were 10, then 8 minutes apart, which is still kind of early for a doula to show up. But given her circumstances, I asked if she wanted me to come over. She said, I really wanted to say yes because these are intense, but I feel bad because I'm sure you're probably busy. I was like, this poor girl, she's so scared to ask for support she needs. I immediately drove to her place. She's a heavier person with a belly, so going by her appearance, I didn't have reason to doubt she was pregnant. She and her mother were living together in a small 2-bedroom apartment. Kaitlyn had a car seat in the living room, a sleeper seat in the bedroom. She had baby clothes, a breast pump. It checked out that this was an under-supported young woman who was making do with what she could get. So she has all this stuff, knowing she's not, in fact, pregnant. How much did her mother know? Because her mom was here for this one? Did she know about all the other ones too? Because why are you letting your daughter get away with this stuff? Like, put a stop to it. I don't care if she's an adult. Y'all live together. Like, you can still be like, this is not okay. I'm going to tell people. Like, go check her into a mental institute, something. Don't let this continue on. Continuing on, it says, a few hours after Samantha arrives, Kaitlyn reports that something is leaking from her body. Samantha suggests it's her water breaking. Kaitlyn continues labor at home for 2 days while Samantha stays at the apartment, taking a few breaks. She keeps a wary eye on the clock, mindful of Kaitlyn's rising infection risks. By Wednesday night, Kaitlyn's water had been broken for almost 48 hours. I had gotten the distinct impression that her mother did not want me there. She kept saying, do you think it's false labor? Are you going to go home? And I was like, Kaitlyn's water broke. It can't be false labor. I was invested in getting Kaitlyn to the hospital, which she was resisting. Eventually, I called the hospital for guidance, and they told me to get her there immediately. Because 48 hours, and you still haven't pushed the baby out, that can be very dangerous. Because they can, like, there's times where they can, like, end up breathing in or aspirating their own gross feces, things like that. There could be a lot of things wrong because it shouldn't take 48 hours, and you need to see why maybe it's taking that long. And why does her mother not want her there? Are you going to go home? Well, I don't know. Why should I go home? Do you think your daughter's in labor? Do you think it's false labor? Do you know if your daughter's actually pregnant, ma'am? Like, we'll see how much more her mother is involved. But I'm not liking the mom at this either. There's ultrasound artwork. There's a rule about not driving your clients, but it was the only option I felt we had. My understanding was that she couldn't afford an Uber or a taxi. Once we got in the car, she flipped out, screaming, sobbing, begging me to leave her and forget she exists. She was so emotional, I had to pull over. I called my mentor, who has attended over 700 births. She asked to speak with Kaitlyn, and she convinced her to go to the hospital. Once we parked, though, Kaitlyn wouldn't get out of the car. I had to threaten to get a staffer. This is exactly the kind of doula I don't want to be. I never want to force you to do something you don't feel safe doing, but Kaitlyn didn't give me a choice. When we got inside, she started questioning whether or not her water had ever even broken. I called my mentor again and we started questioning. Theoretically, it was possible that the fluid Kaitlyn said she saw was not coming from her water breaking, but instead liquid that had been trapped behind something called a mucus plug, which comes out before or during labor. That would mean she wasn't really at risk for an infection. At that point, I was just like, I need to respect Kaitlyn's choice. That is what we do as doulas. So, they are going to worry about these pregnant women because it's just part of caring and their jobs. They want to make sure that the mom and the baby are safe. And that's just from like a human standpoint. But as doulas, they're there to just support them. And so I could see why she's, thinking, we got to support her choice. If she doesn't want to be here or this, then I have to respect that. I can't force her to do things. But can you imagine? The OBGYN said, Kaitlyn, there is no pregnancy. The only thing in your uterus is an IUD, which is a form of birth control. She failed to mention that to anybody, that she had an IUD in her. Samantha drives Kaitlyn home and asks if they can meet at the hospital when it's time. On Saturday, Kaitlyn texts that her contractions have returned, and once again, she has no safe way to get to the hospital. Samantha agrees to give her another ride and repeats the exhausting process of getting Kaitlyn out of the car and into the building. So she has to do this for round 2. I breathed a sigh of relief when we got through the doors. An OBGYN came into Kaitlyn's room with an ultrasound machine. She started doing the scan, then quickly stopped. In my head, I was like, why did you stop? You didn't find the baby yet. That's when the OBGYN wiped off the ultrasound goo, sat down, and said, Kaitlyn, there is no pregnancy. The only thing in your uterus is an IUD. The OBGYN offered to call a social worker or a psychiatrist, but Kaitlyn wanted to leave right away. At that point, I wasn't sure if this was a hysterical pregnancy, meaning whether Kaitlyn truly believed she was pregnant. If that was the case, then she basically did just lose a baby. The only thing she said the entire ride home was, I'm so confused. I had another decision to make. I could be compassionate to somebody who possibly did not deserve my compassion, or I could be a real jerk to somebody who possibly needed my compassion. I made the choice I could live with. As I dropped her off, I said, do you want me to send you resources on your lost? She refused. And we know that with certain mental illnesses and things out there, that there are such things as hysterical pregnancies, where the person truly believes that they are actually pregnant. And so when they find out that they're not, and they have to go into reality or they get on meds, in their mind, they have spent this whole time thinking they were pregnant. And then all of a sudden, they have lost a baby that didn't exist. But in their mind, it really did exist. But that is not what Kaitlyn Braun had going on. She knew she was in fact not pregnant. So props to the doula for still trying to be compassionate. I'm sure she, I don't know if she would regret that decision, because even now, knowing the truth and things like that, she can tell her off now. But in the time, she was a professional, and dealt with her in a compassionate manner. Because at that time, she didn't know if she was a liar or just somebody who struggled with mental illness and had a hysterical pregnancy. But she refused the resources. Now, not to say that if she was just having a hysterical pregnancy, she wouldn't have refused the resources. That's her right. She could have been so upset that she just didn't even want to deal with that. And then maybe after she calmed down, maybe then she could contact her and ask her for these resources again. So just because of that, I wouldn't say automatically, oh, well, if she really did think she was pregnant, she would have taken these resources. Not everybody would do that. But props to this doula for doing what she did. November 2022. Hospital horrors. This time, Kaitlyn is a queer SA survivor who has been shunned by her family. She's supposedly in the hospital with intensifying contractions about the experience a 32-week stillbirth. Rachel, 32, and Nora, 25, are doula friends who have agreed to team up on phone support. Kaitlyn's story, challenging to verify remotely, becomes more disturbing with each passing day. So this is story number 2. Rachel. I labored with her all day Saturday over the phone. Everything sounded super real. I could hear car sounds as she rode to the hospital. I could hear a heartbeat monitor once she was there. I was completely convinced. That just shows the lengths that she went to. Where'd she get the heartbeat from? She had that somewhere to make sure that that noise was heard. She went to great lengths in this scam. Nora. It's hard to describe just how real it all was. She was even throwing up over the phone. She told us she touched the baby's head as it was coming out, and I was like, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever done. Rachel. Shit hit the fan about 45 minutes after the stillbirth when Kaitlyn told me her placenta was not coming out. She told me she had to undergo a D&C and then a hysterectomy when the bleeding wouldn't stop. Over the phone, I helped her process losing her uterus to her ARPist dead baby just days before her 24th birthday. And that was the least traumatic event of the week that followed. Oh my God. That's a bad week of helping somebody through a hysterectomy and an ARPist, a baby that's not alive. That's the least traumatic event? Go back to bed, start over. Kaitlyn tells Nora and Rachel that because her post-hysterectomy bleeding isn't stopping, she's being transferred to a second hospital, then a third, where she receives 2 devastating diagnoses, a clotting disorder and late-stage pelvic cancer. Rachel says, at this point, we made it clear we are no longer the professionals like Kaitlyn needs, but you become so attached to this person you think is alone and dying, it's really hard to walk away. Nora states they gave her 3 options. A vaginectomy. I'm sorry, they're going to remove her vajayjay. That was an option? Okay. Why are they removing the vajayjay? What in the... Okay. Apparently that is for... That has other... People have that for other things. Okay. Well, that wasn't something I thought I was going to hear. Radiation or palliative care. Her kidneys were starting to fail. Things were not looking good. Rachel says she told us she might live a year with treatment and 3 months without treatment. Nora says she decided she wanted to stop care. I was on the phone crying for the whole thing. Rachel said Kaitlyn somehow knew I grew up with a dad whose partner owned a funeral home. I wrote a will with her. She also told us in graphic detail how a male doctor had touched her downstairs being while his hand was inside her to stop the bleeding. She told us she didn't feel safe with us calling the police because she was still at the hospital. That made sense to us as an SA survivor. And then, when you become attached to the person you think is alone and dying, it's really hard to walk away. She kept saying to us, I'm sorry I roped you into this. I'm so sorry you're experiencing this with me. She was in an ambulance being transferred to yet another hospital when she started whispering, he's here. He's in the ambulance. She gave me his name. I looked him up, and he is a real working doctor at the hospital. And then she detected this doctor arping her in the back of the ambulance before she suddenly hung up the phone. What? This is insane. So insane. She tried to bring down a doctor who didn't even know her into this. Like, he could have been reported, he could have lost his license, he could have gone to jail for a made-up scenario by this woman. This is not okay. I mean, maybe make up a fake name if you're going to fake the thing, but I guess you need people to verify so that gives you some credibility, but like maybe like Francois Davenport or Henry Belly Lamp or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's not going to give you credibility, but using a real doctor's name. Nora says Rachel starts panicking. She was like, do I call 911? What options do we have? Kaitlyn then convinced us that she was going to report it herself. At the next hospital, Kaitlyn said the same doctor who really does have privileges at both hospitals assaulted her again. Only this time, a nurse caught him in the act and the police were now involved. Well, you would think that the police would want to talk to Nora and Rachel in this scenario because they were on the phone during one of these incidents. But I doubt anybody came to talk to her because this is not real. So she looked up. She knew that the person she named to give her credibility worked at this hospital and that hospital. So she could use him. And when you look it up and you try to verify it, it is true. So it makes her more believable. This is where the scam is truly sick and disgusting. The amount of time and work that she had to put into all this to pull it off. Rachel states at the next hospital, Nora states, she said a nurse from Women's College Hospital was coming to do an ARP kit on her. I wonder what the results of that were. She was very graphic in describing the assaults, how another doctor made her get on all fours during a procedure, how he touched her boobs, how she leaked milk when he did that, how he pulled a tube out of a drain in her body. What is going on here? She was telling us the doctor was enjoying this, that he was ripping out stitches and things like that. The doctor had been arrested, she said. So they think this doctor is in jail currently. But I bet if they looked up and tried to find some reports or see where he was being held or any of that stuff, they wouldn't have been able to find any of it because none of it is true. Oh my gosh, so gross. I don't normally go for a Cosmopolitan article, but this one has a lot of good details because they talk to the victims, and that's the main reason I wanted to go over this, because the victims' words and stories matter in this. And this is the stuff that they went through. Rachel, somebody I was dating at the time, they actually called reporters because they were scared these doctors were going to get away with it. The reporters called back and said, "Are we missing something? Did this happen with a police unit we don't know about?" They could find no record that any of this was happening. Okay, well, just keep reading. Keep reading, Ducky. Hello, winning reality. It's just so bizarre, and the details that go into it. I had been with Kaitlyn since the previous Friday, and now it was Thursday. And that was really the first moment of being like, okay, we need to touch something tangible in this situation. This is when Kaitlyn said she started pushing out chunks of a tumor. What? Well, they weren't lying when they gave the graphic detail warning. She sent us a photo of a piece of tumor on blue Chuck's pad, which I reversed image searched. I'm not looking that up. Nope, don't want to see it. Y'all want to do that? Y'all can do that. I don't want to see it. The words are just fine. They're a little too much already. It was the default Wikipedia photo for, like, rectal cancer. So she's describing in detail things that happen in rectal cancer that is happening to her. So would a vaginectomy even done anything if it was to do with the rectal? Like, getting rid of the vajayjay, I don't think would have fixed your rectal cancer problem, Kaitlyn. That doesn't make any sense. You would have still had this happen. Because you would have still had your booty hole. The 32-week stillbirth baby photos Kaitlyn sent us were like halfway down the first page of Google. So they got to see those pictures too. And I was like, I can't bear the thought of abandoning a client if there's even a 1% potential that this is actually happening. So even though she possibly lied about some things, what if she didn't lie about everything? And now I wonder how Nora in real life actually thinks about that. Or is it like in a trial when you find out a person has lied about something and then now it's hard to believe anything that they ever say? Because you want to throw everything out because you don't know what is real and what isn't. Very much like the Laura Owens case. In that ultrasound, I just doctored the top. I didn't touch the actual image of the ultrasound. But because it's been tampered with, how do we believe it at all? And I wonder if Owens had an ultrasound, if they would tell her, "You are not pregnant. The only thing you have in you is an IUD," which she probably doesn't have. Rachel says Kaitlyn said she had been transferred to another hospital for palliative care. I called the hospital twice when she arrived and then again the next morning to confirm whether Kaitlyn had been admitted. When they told me they had no patient listed under her name, I called the Brantford police and asked them to send a crisis team to Kaitlyn's address. The police called back a couple of hours later and said, "Yep, we found her in her living room at home. She's fine." And I believe that's when they said she is also not pregnant. But if we were to be fair, like if we didn't know the outcome of all this, but if we were to be fair just looking at the story, no, she wouldn't necessarily be pregnant anymore because she would have already had the baby. But she wouldn't just be fine chilling at her home when she had all this stuff supposedly coming out of her and all these surgeries and rectal cancer tumor nastiness. Sorry, no disrespect to people that have actually had to go through this, but she didn't. Which is why this is so horrible and despicable. People should not get away with this. February 2023. We have a problem. Now, Kaitlyn is in an Airbnb. She's 24 weeks pregnant, having learned a day earlier that the fetal heartbeat of the baby she wanted to name Brielle had stopped. Kaitlyn enlists Ashley, 35, who provides in-person and virtual doula services for over 4 days. Ashley says, Kaitlyn told me she was a social work student. She lived on campus with roommates, so she had rented the Airbnb for privacy during labor. I really don't think that people would have been okay with this actual labor stuff happening. If you have Airbnb, seriously, maybe put that in your contract. You can think about it before, but maybe put it in there. We did remote texting support Wednesday evening through most of Thursday. Mid-afternoon on Thursday, she started getting contractions. She had a girlfriend there with her, someone she was dating at the time. I ended up going to the Airbnb just before 10 on Thursday night. When I walked in, Kaitlyn was watching Grey's Anatomy, the episode where April and Jackson lose their baby right after birth. Kaitlyn said this was helping her. I could see how that might help someone, so yeah, that was happening in the background. I don't know that I would want to watch that. I've lost a baby myself, and that would be the last thing that I want to see. I've seen that episode. Those episodes are hard, no matter how long it's been. My child in August will have been 20 years old. That would have been 20 years ago. But episodes like that and hearing stories like that still can get to you, no matter how much time has gone by. And it's heartbreaking. And it's infuriating when people lie about this and make them out to be a victim that they are not. This is why we cover these types of cases, is because this is not okay and we need to call out the behavior, and these type of women need to be held accountable. Because nobody's going to believe all women when we have this kind of nonsense going on. We ended up going to the hospital. I took my own car and the girlfriend drove Kaitlyn. I waited outside at Kaitlyn's request. For nearly a month afterwards, I thought the girlfriend was in on it. But I've spoken to her since, and she definitely wasn't. About half an hour later, Kaitlyn came out and said, I'm still at 4 centimeters, which meant this was probably going to take a while. Got a pregnant lady laying there in the bed. I said you should go home and try to rest. The best thing to do is sleep as much as you can. Since I have a day job, I found a backup doula who could be with Kaitlyn when I couldn't. That doula and I kept in constant communication throughout the weekend. The red flags started to pick up on Sunday. when Kaitlyn said her water broke. The doula was like, I think she peed in front of me. It wasn't her water breaking. It looked like pee. Yeah. I've never been a believe all women anyways. Just blindly. I don't think you should believe anything blindly. I think you need to ask questions. And if it's real, it's real. But no one gender, religious group, color, ethnicity, anything should be believed 100% without asking questions. And a lot of the people that are like believe all women, they don't want equality. They want women to take over. And that's just not what I'm about. I want equality. I don't want us to dominate men. I don't want men to dominate us. I want everybody to be treated the same, no matter the gender, the ethnicity, the religious group, everything. We all bleed the same blood. We should all be treated equally and questioned equally. At one point, Kaitlyn had supposedly gone out to buy some items she needed postpartum. The doula told me she checked inside the bag and there was nothing in it except a change of clothes. That set off an alarm bell in her head. She remembered seeing a post in a local doula group on Facebook about a client who had done similar things. She found the post and it was about Kaitlyn. The doula sent me a screenshot and wrote, "We have a problem." So they remember seeing a post. You're scrolling through Facebook or Twitter or any of that, and then something happens and you're like, wait. You scrolled right past it, but then you now need to go back and find that thing because all of a sudden it pertains to something in your life. Me, I'm very good at setting boundaries. I think you should just get your shit and leave, I told her. And that's kind of what she did. We never contacted Kaitlyn again. My co-doula was like, I think she just peed in front of me. It wasn't her water breaking. It looked like me. I have shy bladder, a very shy bladder. That's nasty. You just pee on yourself. You pee on your clothes. You pee on a floor in an Airbnb that's not yours. I'm sure the owners are thrilled that somebody peed on their floor. It's just disgusting. Yeah, and there is a difference between pee and your water breaking. It's different fluid. Doctors can actually test it to find out. That's what happened to my daughter. They tested it and they were like, yep, this is that. And it wasn't her peeing. The next day, we heard that Kaitlyn had reached out to another doula in the area. We were adding people to Facebook group daily, regardless of people calling the police and doing statements. Nothing was changing. I said, I'm going to make a TikTok video. I wasn't looking to name Kaitlyn. I didn't post any pictures of her. I really just wanted to protect other doulas. I was already feeling so much guilt about bringing somebody else into this, yet another doula who was traumatized. And I believe Ashley is AKA Amy Silva, who was the first to report it, first to make a TikTok video. I will put all of their stuff in the description box, and I'll have it in the other videos as well, their social media names, so that you can go see videos that they've posted about this if you want to. I posted some snippets to Instagram too. Within an hour, a doula messaged me saying, I think I'm with this person right now. Can you call me? I did, and sent her a couple of photos of Kaitlyn. She saw the image and started crying. She and Kaitlyn were at the mall, walking during Kaitlyn's contractions. The doula had excused herself to the car to speak with me. She was so upset. This was the second time I had to say to somebody, you don't owe her anything. You just need to drive away. Yeah, just leave her there. Who cares? Whatever her issues are, bye. You can call the police later. Maybe you can stay there. But pack your stuff and get out. Because you don't know what kind of crazy. She's crazy. You don't know how crazy. I put us on a 3-way call with the police. I told them this is actively happening right this second. You guys need to do something because it's not stopping. It's just getting worse. All right, now we have March 2023, the nail in the coffin. Kaitlyn is in the hospital, flanked by friends, where she's been several days and where she'll soon have to deliver a stillborn baby conceived through ARPing. She reaches out via Instagram to Rosa, 35, a pregnancy and infant loss doula. Rosa began working remotely with Kaitlyn days before Kaitlyn is arrested. Rosa, I think I was one of Kaitlyn's last people. Well, we now know she was arrested again. For other people, you were just the last one in this before this arrest. And then she decided to continue doing it after her arrest and her sentencing. She still didn't stop. This is very fresh for me. I'm still in the process of grasping what happened. And it's sad. It's very sad. She reached out early on Saturday asking if I had ever done virtual loss support. I have, so this request didn't seem unusual. She shared her story and said, I looked through your social media and you just resonate with me. Okay. Everything's good there. Nothing weird. She had been in the hospital since Wednesday. Doctors were waiting to either release her or possibly induce her there. We were messaging back and forth and on Instagram a lot. She seemed very appreciative, but needed a lot of reassurance. Like, I'm sorry I'm bothering you. I don't want to be a burden. The hell you don't, Kaitlyn. You are burdening and bothering everybody on purpose and with intent. But yeah, act like the little wholesome girl. I did have subconscious alarm bells. When she first reached out to me, I went through her social media too. I was trying to substantiate this feeling I had, but I couldn't find any holes. Kaitlyn brought a friend into it, a friend who was supposedly there with her. The friend would take Kaitlyn's phone and they'd pass it back and forth. I was speaking and texting with them both. At one point, her friend said, Kaitlyn and I sound familiar or similar. We've been told that our entire life. Okay, so Kaitlyn is pretending to be two different people at this point, is what I'm gathering. She talked about how she and Kaitlyn had been through so much together, how Kaitlyn is so strong, the strongest woman she's ever seen. Just really talked Kaitlyn up like a best friend would in this kind of scenario. Kaitlyn was progressing into labor. Her friends were in and out of the room for support, but she ended up pushing too early and suffered a cervical tear. She also had placenta abruption, which is when the placenta prematurely separates from the uterus. Doctors worked on her for 2 hours, and she ended up with a hysterectomy, and that still wasn't enough. She had issues with the blood clotting. So this is the second time she's needed a hysterectomy, and she's had this blood clotting issue. Okay, this is the story that I thought was the last one before she got arrested. Like, this was the final, like, they labeled this nail in the coffin. The other one, where she had to get the hysterectomy and all that other stuff, I thought that was this story. But apparently that's a different story. And this just has similar things, because she did do similar things to everybody. Essentially, she was in multi-system organ failure. She was put on life support. The stillborn baby was passed off to the friends, which doesn't happen unless. So I was thinking, oh God, she's done. My client is dead. I was supporting her best friend through all of this. having to say goodbye to Kaitlyn's family making the decision to keep her on life support so her sister from England could come say goodbye. What were they going to do with the baby? I was trying to cope too. This was hitting every one of my triggers. My sister was on life support when I was 4 and she passed away. I had multiple losses. I'm an assault survivor. I had a hysterectomy last year. This surely couldn't have been a fluke. But I don't think it was. So this woman is an actual assault survivor. She has had a hysterectomy for real. And she's had to deal with a sister who was on life support when she was a toddler, preschool age. And she's lost multiple people. And this Kaitlyn Braun chick wants to come up and all in one swoop bring back all her horrible times in her life that really happened to her that hasn't happened to Kaitlyn Braun. Did she search so much that she knew that this person had gone through all this? Was her Facebook like a diary entry of her life? And when she saw it, she was like, perfect. She is the perfect next target. She knows what it's like to be in my fake scenario I draw up. She will for sure have sympathy and empathy for me. It's just the depths that this went is crazy. At this point, I was at capacity, but you can't be like, oh, this is looking bad, I'm going to leave now. Kaitlyn had mentioned that she was a person of faith, and so am I. So I was like, she's getting ready to meet her daughter in heaven. She's not having to process all this trauma. There is no daughter in heaven. And no, she's not having to process all this trauma. Because the trauma is not real. But this woman, the doula, was trying to find the light in all of this, the silver lining. As it says, just really trying to find any kind of silver lining that I could. That is such a sad statement. She's going to get to meet her daughter, and she's not actually going to have to deal with the suffering and trauma or whatever. That one got me. That's sickening. That same evening, Kaitlyn's friend told me, oh, by the way, I'm also pregnant. And I was like, I cannot. And then she said she was having contractions. I told her she needed to find a different support person. I could not do another birth with someone right then. No, that would be really hard, really traumatic. And then to have to do it all again right then without taking like a breather or a break. And maybe people don't think, oh, that's your job, you should just be able to do it. And we're human. Sometimes other people's things and emotion things and things that we're going through can affect our own lives. So, I'm glad she knew that she couldn't handle it at that point. And the fact that this friend wasn't even a real person, but the next day, Sunday morning, the friend told me she was in preterm labor. And then she said, this baby is from an assault by the same person. Even if this was plausible, my brain couldn't make sense. I had so many questions, but I was tapped out. So again, I pushed her to find different support. So they're trying to put her through this scenario 2 times in a row within days or weeks or whatever. The friend started saying that she couldn't feel her baby anymore, that the doctors were rushing her off for an ultrasound because they couldn't find the heartbeat. And I had to be like, I'm done. The last thing she said to me was, do you still want updates about Kaitlyn? That night, I spoke to a coworker I subcontract to sometimes. The situation had delayed my paying her, so I had to let her know what was going on. She sent me a screenshot from a doula Facebook group about a client named Kaitlyn Braun, who had been hiring doulas for fake stillbirths. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Kaitlyn had contacted me on Saturday. By Monday, I was in the group chat hearing everyone's stories. So she got contacted Saturday. Sunday, all that stuff happened with Kaitlyn on Saturday, going into Sunday. Sunday, Kaitlyn's quote unquote friend, who's actually Kaitlyn, says she's pregnant from the same guy that ARPed Kaitlyn, and that she was ARPed by him too. Could that happen? Yeah, it could. And then she finds out about Kaitlyn Braun. And by Monday, she was in the group chat hearing of all these stories of all these other doulas that had gone through the same thing as her or something similar to it. They tried to do it to her 2 times, back-to-back days, and it was still just one person. And this doula seems so kind. Says, I hope Kaitlyn gets the help she so very needs, but I have no sympathy left for her. Having your compassion and your own trauma used against you is grotesque. It's vile. Doulas may be gentle and soft and loving, but you cross our lines, we will stand strong. And props to that. They are standing strong. All the women that have spoken out, whether they are using their real names or they are still anonymous, that's their right. But they are trying to make sure that this does not happen to other people. And it's not only in their town or in Canada. This is now in the United States, and it's national or worldwide news, or it should be. And so hopefully doulas here in the States also watch out for this, or people in the UK know about this to be aware. And it just makes it so hard to trust people. I'm going to read this last part in here. If you are in need of a mental health support concerning any aspect of pregnancy, including pregnancy loss, consider calling or texting confidentially 24/7 at National Maternal Mental Health Hotline at 833-852-6262. That's very important for anybody that needs to hear this. I will also make a posting with that we can share out for anybody who may have issues and they want to be anonymous, but maybe if they see it, they're like, you know what, I could use that. So that is what I'm going to ask y'all to do. I will post it here on YouTube. I will also post it on my Instagram so we can share this out and spread the word. But that is the article of Kaitlyn Braun and her victims. I hope y'all, well, I don't want to say I hope you enjoyed it, because that was not enjoyable necessarily, but I think sharing these stories is important. So that is going to be it. And when we have more updates with her arrest that she got back in May, I will update when we know more about those. So click that like, subscribe, and turn those notification bells on, and I will see you next time.